He was just a janitor, the kind of man people passed by without even noticing, that a man whose steps were soft, whose shoulders stayed lowered, as if he was constantly apologizing for existing in a world that only celebrated the loud and the powerful. But then one quiet morning, everything changed because this unseen, unimportant man did something no billionaire, no therapist, no doctor had been able to do. He reached the heart of a little girl who had forgotten how to live, a 7-year-old who hadn't spoken in 3 months, until an invisible man placed a tiny handmade toy beside her. Don't blink, because by the end of this story, you'll see how two broken souls found their voices in each other. Noah Carter had worked in the towering Hartman Industries skyscraper for almost 7 years, yet not a single executive could recognize him. He was the man who swept the marble floors before sunrise, emptied the trash after midnight, and moved like a shadow in a building made for giants. Quiet, gentle, invisible. On the 47th floor lived a different kind of silence. Lina Hartman, 7 years old, heiress to a billion-dollar empire, hadn't spoken since the night her father died. 8 nannies had quit within weeks. 9 therapists tried every technique they knew: color cards, sensory toys, soft-spoken sessions. Nothing worked. Lina screamed when anyone approached. She hid in corners. She shut down completely. Her mother, Camille, was drowning in grief of her own. Yet nothing hurt more than watching her daughter fade. One late evening, as Noah cleaned the corridor outside the penthouse suite, he heard it, soft, muffled sobbing. The kind that didn't ask for help, but desperately needed it. He placed his mop against the wall and slowly stepped toward the sound. There she was, curled up beside the couch, hugging her knees, shaking. Noah didn't say a word, didn't move closer. He simply lowered himself to the floor a few feet away, letting the silence breathe. After a moment, he reached into his old canvas bag and pulled out a tiny handmade teddy bear, stitched from leftover fabric, uneven but full of warmth. Gently, he placed it on the floor between them and slid it forward. That Lina's crying stopped. Not suddenly, but like a storm, realizing it was finally safe to rest. From the security room, Camille watched the CCTV feed, frozen in disbelief. Her voice trembled as she whispered, "The man no one noticed just performed a miracle." For the first time in months, Camille Hartman felt hope flicker inside her chest. Small, fragile, unbelievable. She replayed the CCTV footage over and over, watching the moment her daughter's trembling finally softened. Watching the way Noah had simply been there without invading her space or forcing a reaction. Most people talked at Lina, some talked over her. But Noah, he just existed beside her. And somehow, that was exactly what she needed. Camille wiped her tears before stepping into the corridor. She didn't want her daughter to see the fear in her eyes. Not again. She found Lina asleep on the couch, one hand curled tightly around the tiny handmade teddy bear Noah had given her, a janitor's teddy bear. Not expensive, not fancy, just soft, uneven, stitched with love. Camille didn't understand it, but she felt it. Something inside that toy was healing her child, a mother's grief. Later that night, after Lina was asleep, Camille stood by the large window overlooking the city. The lights below blurred as her eyes filled again. Her husband, Daniel Hartman, had been everything: partner, protector, the warmth in their home. His private plane had gone down in a storm. 6 months, 8 GO&O survivors. The media called it a tragedy. Shareholders called it a crisis. But for Camille and Lina, it was like a piece of their souls had been ripped out. Lina witnessed the news on live TV. She had screamed until her voice broke. And then one day, she simply stopped speaking. Camille tried every therapy, every specialist, but nothing reached her daughter. Not until the invisible janitor placed a toy on the floor to Noah's secret world of pain. The next morning, Camille asked to speak with Noah. He approached nervously, wiping his hands on his uniform, eyes lowered like he always did. "You helped my daughter," Camille said softly. Noah shook his head. I didn't do anything, ma'am. I just listened." But Camille noticed something in his voice, a heaviness, a tremor, a sadness that felt familiar. "Noah," she said gently, "that bear you gave her, did you make it?" He nodded once. "Why?" Noah swallowed hard. The answer seemed to live in a place he rarely visited. Because someone once told me stories deserve to be held, even when the people who live them can't speak anymore. Camille didn't understand then. She only saw a quiet man carrying a mountain of pain in his heart. But the truth began to unfold later that afternoon that Lionel's first whisper. Noah was sweeping the balcony outside when he heard small footsteps behind him. He turned, surprised. Lionel stood there, still holding the tiny teddy bear, still silent. But her eyes looked clearer than before. Carefully, she stepped closer and pointed at the little backpack on Noah's cart. He opened it slowly and pulled out another stitched toy. This one a tiny felt owl with mismatched buttons for eyes. He placed it in front of her. She stared at it, then at him, and whispered, voice barely audible, "What secret?" Noah froze. Her first words in 3 months, a shaky breath escaped him. "The toys," she whispered again. "They feel like a secret." Noah kneeled, slowly, carefully, as if approaching a frightened fawn. "They're made from memories," he said softly. Lionel tilted her head. "Whose memories?" His throat tightened as he looked down at the floor. "Someone I loved very much." Two broken hearts, finally seen the next day. Lionel found him again. She didn't scream. She didn't hide. She simply sat beside his cleaning cart, hugging her knees the way she had the first night. But this time, she wasn't trembling. "Are you sad too?" she asked, her voice barely a breath. Noah closed his eyes. "Yes," he whispered. "Every day." That was when Camille, watching from the hallway, finally understood. This wasn't luck or coincidence or magic. This was connection. Two souls who understood loss without needing to explain it. Lionel looked at him. Really looked at him. "Do you miss them?" she asked. "More than anything," Noah said. She hesitated, then touched the teddy bear he gave her. "I miss Daddy," she said. Noah nodded slowly. "I miss my son," he replied. The lion's small gasp caught him off guard. You had a child?" she whispered. Noah nodded again, eyes misting. His name was Micah. He was 5. "What happened?" Lionel asked. Noah's voice cracked. "There was an accident. He didn't make it." Lionel leaned closer, clutching the owl he had given her. "My daddy didn't make it either," she said. For a long moment, neither spoke. Two broken hearts sat side by side, sharing their grief without needing to understand every detail. It was the simplest exchange, but the most healing Lionel had felt since her father died. Noah gently wiped a tear from his cheek. "Micah loved stuffed animals," he murmured. "Every night after he left, I started stitching toys to feel like I was still holding a part of him." Lionel looked down at the teddy bear. "Does this have Micah in it?" she asked. Noah smiled sadly. "Yes. Every stitch." Lionel hugged the toy to her chest. Camille finally understands later that evening. Camille met one of her old HR managers, curious about Noah's background. She expected to hear he'd always worked maintenance. Instead, she heard something that made her breath catch. "Noah wasn't always a janitor," the manager said. "He used to be a preschool teacher." Camille went still. A preschool teacher. Suddenly, everything made perfect sense. The way he approached Lina, the patience, the gentle silence, the handmade toys. He wasn't just a man who noticed children, he was a man who understood them. And maybe that was why her daughter had finally spoken. Not because of luck, not because of miracle, but because two wounded hearts, one tiny, one forgotten, recognized each other in the dark. And together, they began to heal. For days after their first conversation, Camille watched something incredible happening, a gentle unfolding, like a flower learning sunlight again. Lionel began following Noah through the quiet hallways, not speaking much, but staying close. She'd sit beside his cleaning cart while he worked, handing him trash bags like they were important treasures. She didn't scream anymore. She didn't hide. She simply existed beside him. And for a child who had lived inside fear for months, existing was a miracle. Camille knew she had to do something bold, something the world might not approve of, but her daughter desperately needed. One morning, she called Noah into the penthouse office. He stood stiffly, trying to blend into the carpet. "Noah," she began, "I want to hire you. Officially. Not as a janitor. As someone who supports Lina. Emotionally. Gently. Quietly. The way you already do. Chuck blinked. Mom, I'm not a therapist. No, Camille said. You're something more rare. Someone she trusts. He looked down, uncertain. I don't know if I'm qualified. You're the only person she talks to, Camille whispered. That's qualification enough. She placed a soft contract in front of him. No pressure, just hope. Noah's fingers trembled as he picked it up. For the first time in years, someone believed he was more than invisible. The boardroom eruption, but the world outside did not understand. When the board of Hartman Industries found out Camille had hired the building janitor to help care for her daughter, chaos erupted. He has no degree, one board member snapped. He's emotionally unstable. Another scoffed, referring to Noah's tragic history written coldly on HR files. We cannot let a grieving, underqualified man near the heiress of this empire. A third argued. Camille slammed her hand on the table. She is not an empire, she hissed. She is my child. The room fell silent. But the whispers began immediately. She's losing control. This could ruin her reputation as CEO. The shareholders won't tolerate this. Camille didn't care. Her daughter's healing mattered more than business headlines. But unfortunately, headlines arrived anyway. The media stormed 2 days later. News broke. Billionaire hires janitor as emotional caretaker for traumatized daughter. Shocking scandal. Photos of Noah sweeping floors were plastered everywhere. Talk shows dissected Camille's decision. Columnists mocked it. Is this responsible parenting or complete breakdown? Has grief made the Hartman family reckless? Reporters camped outside the building. Camera flashes became lightning storms. Noah couldn't even walk to work without someone shouting, "Do you think you're qualified? Did you manipulate the child? Are you taking advantage of the Hartmans?" He kept his head down, gripping his backpack tightly, shaking with humiliation, and one saw the quiet tears that fell down his face when he got home. The world that never noticed him was now ripping him apart. The anonymous complaint one evening, as Noah walked inside the building, 2 police officers approached him. "Sir, there's been a complaint filed against you regarding inappropriate proximity to a minor." Noah froze. "What?" "I know, it's anonymous," one officer said. "But we're required to question you." Lyanna, who had been walking behind Noah, screamed. "No," she cried, latching onto his arm. "Don't take him. They took my dad too." Her voice broke into sobs, raw, terrified, shaking. The officers hesitated, startled that Noah's face crumpled, but he didn't touch her. He kept his hands at his sides, desperate not to make things worse. Hearing the commotion, Camille rushed out of the penthouse elevator. Her eyes widened as she saw the scene. "What is this?" she demanded. The officers explained that Camille's expression shifted from confusion to fury. "This is harassment," she growled. "You're traumatizing a child recovering from severe grief over a baseless, anonymous accusation." One officer softened. "Ma'am, we're just following protocol." "Then follow it by filing my statement," Camille said sharply. "Noah Carter is an employee of mine and a trusted emotional support for my daughter. You will not intimidate him in my home." Her voice echoed through the marble hallway. The officers nodded respectfully and left. Lyanna clung to Noah's sleeve, sobbing into it. Camille knelt beside her. "Sweetheart," she whispered, "Noah's not going anywhere." She looked up at Noah. "Not unless he chooses to." But the look in Noah's eyes terrified her. He looked broken. Noah wants to walk away that night. Noah packed his backpack with the toys he had stitched, little pieces of mica he had shared with Lyanna. He couldn't let himself be a burden. He couldn't survive another accusation. He had already lost his son, his family, his identity. He walked to Camille's office with trembling hands. "Ma'am," he said quietly, "I think it's best if I step away." "No," Camille said immediately. "Noah, please, it's too much," he said, voice cracking. "The media, the board, the police. I can't be the reason your life gets harder. Or hers. You're not the reason," she insisted. "You're the solution." "She'll forget me," Noah lied. "Children forget." Camille slammed her hand on the desk, tears in her eyes. "She won't," she said. "You know she won't." Silence fell heavy and suffocating. "She lost her father," Camille whispered. "If you leave, she will break all over again." Noah flinched, as if someone had sliced open an old wound. I don't want to hurt her, he said. Then stay, Camille begged. Stay until she can stand on her own. Stay until her heart is strong. Stay because she needs the one person who makes her feel safe. Noah looked away, jaw trembling. I'm just a janitor, he whispered. Camille shook her head. No, you're the only person my daughter has let into her world. And that makes you irreplaceable. Noah closed his eyes. He could walk away, or he could stay for the little girl who held his handmade toys like lifelines. And for the first time since Micah died, someone needed him again. Not out of pity, not out of charity, but out of love. After a long, shaking breath, Noah whispered, I'll stay. And somewhere on the other side of the door, listening quietly, Lionel smiled through her tears. For weeks, life inside the Hartman penthouse had slowly grown softer. The panic in Lionel's eyes faded. Her hands, once trembling at every sound, now reached for Noah's with quiet trust. Every afternoon, she waited by the elevator for him, clutching the stitched toys he made, tiny pieces of mica that had stitched her heart back together too. But healing is never a straight line. Sometimes it breaks, right before it fully forms. And one rainy night, everything shattered again. The empty room it was. Nearly 9 p.m. when Camille knocked on Lionel's bedroom door. Sweetheart, time for dinner. Silence. She opened the door, expecting to find Lionel reading or playing quietly. But the room was empty, the bed untouched, the toys scattered, her little slippers gone. Lionel, Camille called out, her voice rising. Nothing. Fear shot through her like lightning. She searched the penthouse, calling her name louder each time. Lionel, Lionel. No answer. Within minutes, security was alerted. Guards swept the top floors, CCTV footage was dragged up, and Noah, hearing the panic, rushed from the hallway. What's wrong? He asked. Camille could barely speak. She's gone. He didn't hesitate, didn't panic, didn't ask for details. He closed his eyes for 1 second, just one, and then whispered, I know where she is. A father's office, a child's grief. He didn't run, he walked with purpose, like someone following a compass only he could feel, down the marble hallway, through the executive wing, past the doors nobody touched anymore, until he reached one room that had been locked since the day Daniel Hartman died, her father's office. Noah placed his ear against the door. He heard soft crying, the kind that burrowed straight into his soul. He gently turned the handle. It wasn't locked. Inside, the room glowed with the faint light of the city. The air smelled like cologne that had long faded. Bookshelf untouched. Desk perfectly neat. His chair still angled toward the skyline, exactly the way Daniel left it. And in the middle of the floor was Lionel, curled into a small ball, clutching the handmade teddy bear Noah had given her, sobbing quietly, trying so hard not to break. Noah closed the door softly behind him. He walked slowly, never rushing, never startling her, and sat on the carpet nearby, just like he had the very first day. Lionel lifted her tear-streaked face. Her lower lip trembled. I don't want to forget my dad, she whispered. Her voice cracked into 1,000 trembling pieces. And for a moment, Noah felt the echo of Micah's absence in his own chest. He leaned forward slightly, never too close, never demanding more than she could give. You won't forget him, he said gently. She shook her head violently. But everyone is moving on. And Mommy stopped crying. And people don't talk about him. And I'm scared that one day I'll wake up and he'll be gone from my head. She hugged the teddy bear tighter. I don't want to lose him again. Noah's eyes glistened, not with pity, never with pity, but with understanding carved into his bones. He reached out and placed a hand over his heart. Lionel, look at me. She looked up, teary and trembling. Do you know what happens to the people we love? He whispered. They become part of us. She frowned softly, confused. Noah smiled through his own tears. Look in the mirror, he said. You'll see him. She blinked. He's in your smile, Noah continued. He's in your stubborn little eyebrows that scrunch up when you're thinking. He touched the teddy bear gently. He's in the way you love, the way you feel deeply, the way you remember. Lionel stared at him, breath unsteady, heart cracking open. He never left you, Noah whispered. Not once. A soft sob escaped her, but it wasn't the sound of fear anymore. It was release. She crawled closer, not for comfort, but for truth, and leaned her forehead lightly against his shoulder. Noah wrapped an arm around her, holding her carefully, reverently, as if she were something fragile and sacred. Because she was the mother's breaking point. When Camille finally found the open office door, she rushed inside breathlessly. Lionel, her daughter, looked up, eyes red, cheeks wet, but not the hollow, empty child she'd been months ago. "Mommy," she whispered. Camille fell to her knees and pulled her close, crying in her hair. "I thought I lost you," she whispered. Lina shook her head. "I just needed him," she said quietly, looking toward Noah. Camille's eyes softened, overflowing with gratitude she couldn't voice. "Thank you," she mouthed to him. But Noah shook his head gently. "She found her father tonight," he said softly. "I only showed her where to look." Camille wiped her tears, pulling Lina into a fierce embrace. Noah stepped back, giving them space, because that was who he was, a presence that healed without taking up space. The press conference the next morning, the world waited for a statement from Camille Hartman. The scandal of the janitor caretaker had reached global headlines. Critics screamed irresponsibility. Shareholders demanded explanations. Commentators mocked her decision. Cameras flashed wildly as Camille stepped onto the platform, holding Lina's hand. Noah stood behind them, unsure, uncomfortable, ready to step away at any moment. But Camille didn't let him. She gestured toward him. "My daughter has been silent for months," she began, voice steady but heavy with truth. 9 therapists couldn't reach her. A dozen experts failed. Cameras clicked furiously, but someone did. She looked at Noah, not with a degree, not with a title, but with compassion. Noah's eyes widened, chest tightening. "Empathy," she continued, "is not taught. And grief doesn't respond to credentials. It responds to humanity." She pulled Lina closer. "She speaks now because Noah understood her pain, because he lived his own." The room fell silent. Then Camille inhaled deeply, the next words heavier than any announcement in her career. "And today, we honor that understanding." She looked directly at Noah. "I am establishing Micah's Hope, a grief support center for children and families. A place where pain is heard, not hidden." A murmur spread across the room. "Named after Noah's son," she added softly. "In honor of a little boy whose memory helped save my daughter." Noah's breath caught that Micah's name, spoken publicly with love instead of tragedy. "And Noah Carter," Camille said, voice unwavering, "will be the heart of this center." Gasps filled the room, half shock, half admiration. "He will guide it with the kindness that rebuilt my daughter's world." Noah felt his knees weaken as Lina slipped her hand into his. "You saved me," she whispered. For the first time in years, Noah allowed the tears to fall. Not of grief, not of guilt, but of being seen, truly, finally seen. But a new beginning that night. As the lights dimmed and reporters cleared out, Noah stood in the quiet lobby. Camille approached him softly. "You deserve this," she said. He shook his head. "I'm just a janitor." Camille smiled gently. "Not anymore." Lina ran up, holding 2 toys, one teddy bear, one owl. She pressed them into Noah's hands. "So you don't forget Micah," she whispered. "Because I won't forget, Daddy." Noah knelt, pulling her into a warm, steady embrace. "Micah would have loved you," he whispered. And for the first time since losing his son, Noah didn't feel alone, that he felt chosen, he felt needed, that he felt whole. Because 2 broken souls, one small, one quiet, had found each other in the dark and saved each other's lives. The years that followed were a quiet miracle, one stitched together with patience, kindness, and the kind of love born only from shared heartbreak. Micah's Hope, the little center created from Noah's pain and Camille's gratitude, became something far bigger than either of them imagined. What began as a single room filled with stitched toys and soft chairs soon grew into 10 centers across the state, then 30 across the country. Everywhere it opened, children who had gone silent learned to speak. Again, parents who had lost everything found breath again. And at the heart of every building, every soft-lit room filled with tissues, drawings, and teddy bears, was Noah. The man who once mopped hallways no one walked for him was now the reason thousands of children walked back into the light. The children he saved, Noah didn't give lectures or use big psychological terms. His gift was simpler, far more profound. He sat with kids the way he once sat with Lina, quietly, steadily, never demanding, only welcoming. He stitched toys for them too, foxes, owls, bears, each one carrying a thread of Micah's memory. And Lina, growing older, stronger, brighter, became his little helper. She would sit with new children who arrived silent and terrified, placing one of Noah's toys into their hands. "This helps," she would whisper. "It helped me." And somehow, they believed her. The anniversary speech 5 years after the first center opened, Micah's Hope held an anniversary event. Cameras flashed, donors applauded, but Noah stood nervously backstage, clutching the original teddy bear he made for Lina, the one that started everything. Camille squeezed his hand. "You've earned this," she whispered. He stepped onto the stage slowly as the crowd quieted. Noah cleared his throat, looking out at the families whose lives had intertwined with his own. "I never thought I'd stand somewhere like this," he began. "I used to believe loss stole everything. My son, my marriage, my purpose." He paused, voice thickening. "But I learned something from a little girl who found me in a hallway. Grief doesn't end love. It changes it." Lina smiled proudly from the front row. "Love never ends," Noah said softly. "It simply finds new forms to live in." The room went silent, soft, reverent. In that moment, Micah felt close. Daniel felt close. Every child lost too soon felt close. Love had changed its shape. Just like Noah said, at a chosen family, their lives didn't snap together in one dramatic moment. Healing never works like that. Instead, it unfolded gently. Noah began having dinner with Camille and Lina once a week, then twice, then every night. That he became part of the routines. Goodnight hugs, story readings, breakfast pancakes. Camille's laughter returned. Lina's joy blossomed. And Noah, for the first time since Micah's death, felt like he belonged somewhere. There was no announcement, no dramatic confession. Just three people who slowly realized they didn't function right without each other. A mother, a daughter, a quiet man who carried his grief in threads and fabric. A family, not by blood, but by healing. Final scene. A park full of light one golden evening. The three of them went to the park. Lina, now taller, braver, and glowing with life, ran toward the swings. "Push me," she called. Noah smiled and gave her a gentle push, her laughter ringing through the warm air. Camille stood beside him, hands folded softly, watching her daughter soar. "She's happy," Camille whispered. "Because she's loved," Noah replied. Camille looked at him, not as her employee, not as a man who saved her daughter, but as someone who had become the quiet center of their world. "And so are you," she said. Noah didn't respond, that he didn't need to. Lina laughed again as she swung high, her hair catching the sunlight. Two broken adults stood side by side, watching a child who had once been lost, now flying out a new family, stitched not from perfection, but from pain, patience, and the gentle miracle of choosing one another. Broken pieces becoming whole. In the end, this wasn't a story about loss. It was a story about how loss can reshape us. A janitor who carried quiet grief, a billionaire mother drowning in hers, and a little girl who thought her heart would never feel whole again. But healing came in the simplest form: a stitched teddy bear, a shared silence, a hand that didn't let go. Micah's Hope became more than a center. IT became a reminder. Family isn't always blood. Sometimes, it's the people who walk into your brokenness and choose to stay.